Please be advised that the views and opinions of the host and guests do not reflect those of the station, the management, and its network. Face the nation.
We will be doing a series of programs together with other chambers, working alongside the government agenda. And this is what today is our Malaysia Chamber has started the first GMM with ARTA and second GMM with DICT, and always with ARTA beside us and with the media. We want all this to be published so that all the business community will come in one accord, complementing the government effort. This is the kind of uphill task, but it's more than light at the end of time. And we are very optimistic. This Philippines, with such a potential, with such a rich resources, with the improvement of ease of doing business. Personally, we all believe that the FDI, not only FDI but the domestic investment will.
Nations can collaborate together in terms of developing the trade investment portfolio in our nations. I arrived 7 months ago, and then in 7 months, I've seen the tremendous expansion of the economy in Philippines, largely due to, of course, to the foresight and the policies that has been spearheaded by, of course, President Bongbong Marcos, which I must acknowledge. And of course, we have today Honorable Romeo, the Commissioner, which I must say I'm always happy to see, and not only me but my staff because of how he looks, but anyway, that beyond saying, but he's indeed one of the most, I would say, outstanding secretaries I've met in terms of how much the BR has contributed to the expansion of business in Philippines. The ease of doing business is, of course, one of the hallmarks of any nation as we strive to encourage more trade investments in the nations. And in Philippines, I know there has been a lot of concern because basically countries or organizations or businesses that want to invest in the country would look at how easy would it be to be able to invest. And I must say, through the efforts of Commissioner Romeo, Secretary Perez, who's not here now, but I'm sure he will be able to talk to you more on this, there has been a lot of work in trying to improve the ease of doing business. And I think for countries like us, which are very keen to see how we can improve intra-ASEAN trade, this is, of course, a key hallmark that we look for. Moving forward, I'm happy to see, like I said, collections of many key businesses here, and I hope all of these businesses can come together, not as separate entities, but as one group, because obviously there is, we have differences in our expertise, and in this way, if we can combine our expertise together and then work towards investments, I think that's where we should be going. Today I have to also acknowledge some of the key Malaysian companies. We have Carson, one of the unicorns of Malaysia in digitalization. And I won't mention the other companies, but I think most of these companies are basically very keen to promote their products here. I would like to touch a bit on some advocacy that the Malaysian Embassy is doing. One of it, of course, is the halal economy. As you know, the halal economy is poised to grow. Latest figures show that the figures is supposed to reach almost US 7.5 trillion by 2025. It's been revised actually, and this is a huge number. And in this particular industry, both Philippines and Malaysia are working to see how we can develop the supply ecosystem here in the Philippines. And I think this is where, while maybe some of you may not have embarked or looked at what the halal economy is, but I think it's one of the key sector of growth for Asian countries. You know, Malaysia is one of the strongest, in fact, the strongest halal economy hub in the world. And we want to see how we can further develop this economy in other ASEAN countries in order to better the economy, and of course in terms of creating jobs and of course creating a stable economy. In Philippines, we have embarked on several projects. Of course, one of the key ones is working to create platforms, be it in terms between the government and the private sector, or even between the private sector and the private sector itself. We hope to continue to work on this as the time goes by.
This is a very important topic. It is both timeless and timely. And I would like to make 3 points this morning. I speak today not only as Ambassador of Singapore, but also as the wife of an SME owner who face countless challenges as well. And I know this from day-to-day experience. First, we face a rapidly evolving business landscape today. Business models, consumer behaviors are being constantly reshaped. The relentless pace of technological advancements and shifting geopolitical forces challenge the order of the day. The world is increasingly complex. And so, businesses that are agile, businesses that can adapt and leverage disruptions will emerge as winners. Similarly, economies that can foster an environment where entrepreneurship doesn't just survive, but thrive, will come out on top. Dismantling the barriers that businesses face will clear the path for progress and investment. With more and better investment dollars, you can generate better jobs, earn more tax revenues, and higher incomes, all of which will help to uplift communities and raise living standards. Second, Singapore and the Philippines are close and long-standing partners. There is great potential to deepen our cooperation. Our two nations enjoy excellent relations. Next year, we will celebrate 55 years of the establishment of our diplomatic relations. This has been an enduring partnership characterized by strong political, economic, cultural, and people-to-people ties. Some of you may not know this, but Singapore is the Philippines' top source of FDI. For the past 3 years, we've been the top investor here in the Philippines. We have investments in key sectors, including renewable energy, infrastructure, healthcare, and ICT, just to name a few. And in terms of trade, Singapore is the Philippines' 7th largest trading partner globally, 5th largest export market, and 6th largest import supplier. So many Singapore companies see the Philippines as an attractive and vital partner with its consistent growth, large market, rich human capital, and strategic location in the ASEAN region. My third and final point. The Philippines' economic reforms and the efforts to enhance the business landscape will present a tapestry of opportunities for Singapore investors and companies. There have been several very key developments, such as the passing of the Republic Act 11032, otherwise known as the Ease of Doing Business Law, which created the ARTA, and recent moves like EO 18 to constitute green lanes for strategic investments and other landmark reforms made by Congress. President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has also emphasized the government's steadfast commitment to address the challenges and to foster an environment that is increasingly conducive to doing business. The presence today of the BIR Commissioner, as well as ATA Secretary Perez, is testament to that commitment. Indeed, streamlined processes and clear, efficient regulatory frameworks are pivotal in enhancing business engagement. In the words of the President, the message he wants to send is a call to the world that the Philippines is open for business, ready and eager to welcome those who share in the vision of a prosperous and inclusive future. Truly, the wealth of nations is all about trade, and Singapore is ready to be a part of the Philippine growth story. I'm confident that we will find synergies and many more opportunities to further strengthen our cooperation. Thank you.
It's very meaningful to attend this event co-organized by TCCI, MCCI, and SPA for the first time. The Philippines is definitely one of Taiwan's most important partners in ASEAN region. In terms of bilateral trade and investment, Taiwan was Philippines' 8th largest trading partner, as well as the 10th biggest foreign direct investor in 2022. To date, there are more than 600 Taiwanese companies operating in the Philippines, creating at least 80,000 jobs, with the number continuously increasing. In the past 5 months since I took office, I have met a number of Taiwanese locators in the Philippines on various occasions. They honestly shared their experiences investing here with me. I'm glad to learn that the Philippines has its own exclusive advantages, such as well-educated talents with English proficiency. However, there are several challenges in doing business as well. Among the challenges is taxation is an important one faced by Taiwanese investors in the Philippines. I believe that local Malaysian and Singaporean manufacturers probably also feel the same way. That is why these 3 chambers jointly organized this seminar. In complying with legal requirements, my office appeals to all Taiwanese investors in the Philippines to abide by local laws and regulations while doing business. However, we hope the Philippine government authorities could also provide as much assistance as possible to the foreign enterprises in tackling with taxation issues. I truly hope everyone attending this event have a very fruitful and productive result through today's sharing. Finally, I wish everyone good health, good fortune, and all the best. Maraming salamat po, mabuhay. 谢谢大家. Thank you very much.
The Bureau will always welcome opportunities to communicate and exchange ideas with the public on how we can better assist them in complying with their obligations as taxpayers. The President, Ferdinand Marcos Jr., is very sincere in uplifting the lives of the Filipinos and improving the country, as well as, of course, the business environment in the Philippines and attracting foreign investors there. Therefore, he's really serious in the efforts or government's effort to improve all the systems, not just for BIR, but for the entire government as well. And rest assured that the government is doing everything it can to better serve the public, and including, of course, especially foreign investors that really help us improve our economy. And it also goes without saying, therefore, that we are just as committed in the BIR, or the Bureau of Internal Revenue, to provide competent and efficient service to the foreign investors who have chosen to invest in the Philippines and the Philippine economy and establish business enterprise in the country. It is impossible to underestimate the importance of foreign investment to growth and development of the Philippine economy. Aside from providing funding and generating employment, foreign investments are a sign of international confidence in the Philippines as a viable business location and of the Filipino people as competent, productive, and hardworking individuals. It follows, therefore, that the Bureau, as a public service institution, must consistently explore ways through which it can provide more effective services to both local and foreign investors. Taxation is one of fundamental means through which every investor, be they domestic or foreign, can help in the task of nation building, and it is therefore incumbent upon us in the Revenue Service to ease the compliance burden as far as possible. This is particularly true in the areas of registration and the filing and payment of taxes. Registration, arguably the most crucial aspect of any taxpayer's compliance requirements, is the means through which one becomes a taxpayer. and therefore an integral part or element of the tax system. Filing and payment, on the other hand, are the primary duties of a taxpayer and the means through which they directly contribute to the government's efforts to generate revenues. Ensuring that every taxpayer is familiar with these processes is therefore one of the most crucial responsibilities and the most fundamental taxpayer service that the Bureau must fulfill. And one of the most direct ways through which we can contribute to the government's efforts to promote the ease of doing business in the Philippines. I'm therefore grateful for the opportunity to assist the Council and its members in their efforts to become more familiar with the registration, filing, and payment processes. Moreover, as foreign investors, there are certain considerations that must be taken into account when you comply with these requirements, and I welcome this opportunity to acquaint you with them. And as far as the BIR is concerned, and when I took over as the head of this agency last year, or a year ago, I was appointed, as mentioned earlier, November of last year. We came up with this 4 focus areas that the BIR must really do well so that we can better serve the tax-paying public. We, of course, one of the priority areas that we concentrated on is the integrity and professionalism of the institution and the employees. And we've been working very hard in improving in this aspect. In just a few months in office, I think within the 4-month period, we already dismissed earning BIR officials of around 26 employees already. And we will continuously do so, improving ourselves, removing or ridding the BIR of these notorious people. But in fairness, and I must say this, the BIR is already a professional agency. Of course, it's not perfect. There will still be rotten tomatoes or rotten apples in the agency, and we are committed in just improving this aspect. That's why we are also strict in disciplining our ranks, because a few of these bad apples affect the entire bureau, and it's also unfair to gauge the BIR and the other employees who are doing very well, who have high integrity and professionalism, being affected by these little number of people. That's why we are also focused on disciplining and dismissing all these. In the next few days or weeks, we will also issue preventive suspensions on erring personnel as well, because we again are committed in providing an institution with full integrity and professionalism. Second aspect that we're also focusing on is the digitalization or automation of all the processes of the Bureau. This is also, of course, for us to be more efficient in delivering the services that you deserve. So the digital transformation, we've been calibrating it, we've been recalibrating, we've been trying to fast track and streamlining all the digitalization efforts so that we can automate all the processes. And again, it will add to the integrity of the processes, transparency of our processes, and ultimately improve and we will hopefully gain the confidence of the foreign investors and the public. This is also true with respect to refunds. I'm sure you've heard of this, that it has become an issue, that VAT refund. Rest assured that we've been acting on your applications for VAT refunds very efficiently. We've streamlined the requirements, we've cut down the requirements, and the majority of the refunds, that's why if there are news reports or other information that you've been receiving that we've been denying VAT refunds, that is not true, because majority of the refunds are being granted. And it's unfair to just generalize, just say that we deny one and it's being generalized that we've been denying refunds holistically and across all industries. That's an unfair statement for BIR, because rest assured, if you will see the number of applications for VAT refunds, majority of those are granted. And also, those that are being denied, there are really defects in the submission of documents. Like, for example, this particular taxpayer has been very noisy in public and in the media that the refund has been denied, can you imagine submitting a secretary's certificate which certifies that a board meeting happened? The date of the secretary's certificate was dated even prior to the board meeting. So do you expect us to grant a refund based on clearly defective documents and even the invoices that have been submitted? There were alterations in the documentation. So it's unfair that you go to the media and say that we've been denying unreasonably VAT refunds, but rest assured that if you are entitled to refund and if you follow everything there in the law, we are just an implementing agency, and rest assured that we will implement whatever is there reasonably and of course to all the advantage. And this is really a sincere effort on our part to give it to you, because we owe it to the investors, we owe it to the taxpayers, that if you are entitled by law to a refund, both substantially and also, of course, if you comply with these requirements, you will get your refund, and that I guarantee you. And the digitalization would also fast track that, and we're focusing on that. And the third one is, of course, providing taxpayer service or excellent taxpayer service. We are doing this, we have been streamlining, we've been doing a nationwide ISO certification to improve our processes so that everything will be faster, will be more efficient, so that it will be easier for all of you to transact with our agency. And lastly, of course, we will be strict and hard on our enforcement activities. That's why we've tagged it as fearless and enforcement activities. In the past months, you've seen in the news that we've been aggressive against syndicates. We've gone against these syndicate selling ghost receipts or fake receipts, and this is a huge syndicate that it's the first time ever that they've been caught, and we've been filing criminal cases against them and also against those involved, be it the seller or the buyers of these ghost receipts, to cheat on their taxes. And also the syndicates involved in illicit trades. We are also raiding these traders nationwide, and we also follow up with filing of criminal cases, because again, we are aware of the comments or criticisms by some other people that we do raids and no cases being filed. But here, we are very transparent. You can see that every time we go against illicit traders, every time that there's a raid, we follow up with the filing of criminal cases. And of course, whatever happens to the criminal case, it's now beyond our control. But as far as BIR is concerned, we're showing you that we're committed in improving this to eradicate all the illicit traders, so that compliant taxpayers will also be benefited by this, because this will level the playing field. I'm sure that you are affected as a legitimate taxpayer, as a compliant taxpayer, probably sell their products at a lower price because they've not been paying taxes, they've been doing these illicit activities. So we want to level the playing field for compliant taxpayers. That's why we are very aggressive on running after these syndicates and illicit traders. So rest assured that we will continuously do this. We will not get tired running after these syndicates and illicit traders. And we will not get tired of improving our services. And that's also why we value, or I personally value, discussing these with you, because we want to hear from you, we want to hear your comments, we want to know how we will be able to improve ourselves more so that we can serve you better. And in this connection, we also had a memorandum of agreement with different chambers and business groups. This aims to, of course, get all inputs from the private sector on comments, of course, on our current activities, on how to improve, on what you need, so that, of course, because you ultimately are the corporations or the individuals that we serve. That's why we want to know your what you need and how we can improve. Of course, we also want you to understand our limitations as a government agency, we want you to know our predicament as well, so that we can work together. And in this manner, you can feel that BIR is really your partner, it's really your friend, it's really a collaborative effort to make business an easy one, to make a business flourish. So we're not here to just penalize you. We're here to assist you. We're here to make compliance very easy for all of you. And that is the commitment that I can say that the Bureau is well committed in doing this to improve our services.
Once again, thank you very much, Commissioner Romeo Lumagi Jr.
Way back prior to 2020, the Bureau of Internal Revenue actually have a way by which we evaluate a computerized accounting system being used by taxpayers. Now, why do we have to evaluate? We have to ensure that whatever configurations, whatever would be the features of your accounting system would be compliant with the tax requirements. Particularly, we look into the proper computation of taxes, the withholding tax provisions that you need to do whenever you have payments on your expenses. However, because the Bureau is very much active in the ease of doing business, way back 2019, so that the Bureau in 2020 have already streamlined the process by which a computerized accounting system will be allowed to be used by any business. Currently, there is no more a need to secure a permit to use. There is no more systems demonstration. All you have to do is submit with the BIR about 5 documentary requirements and register your accounting system with the BIR. Recently, we have introduced the online registration and update system so that this year we made that compliance of registering your accounting system easier, because you may now lodge application for registration of computerized accounting system using our ORUS, our online registration system. So there is no more a need for you to go to any revenue district office of the BIR. You could just create your account in ORUS, and then you could already lodge your application for your registration of your accounting system. You can even generate the acknowledgement certificate through ORUS, and therefore that acknowledgement certificate would be a proof that you have informed the BIR of that accounting system that you will use. Before, it's quite difficult because you need to apply, you need to schedule a systems demo, we need to understand, so there are so many exchange of questions, answers before a particular permit is given. Now, you submit the documents through our ORUS and you can now generate your acknowledgement certificate, meaning you may now use your accounting system as you wish it is done. So, much better, faster, and convenient for all taxpayers. It is your option whether to use the conventional accounting process, which could be a combination of manual and Excel. Or, if you have the money, you know, when you buy this software, computerized accounting system, the cost is not that low. So it's actually an investment. But what is this investment for? Number one, accounting system helps the owner of the business for purposes of internal control. So whatever transactions that's being done by your company can be traced accordingly. Now, versus when you do manual, sometimes it's very difficult to trace, you know, not all our employees and even officials are angels. Some of them may be tempted to do otherwise, and therefore, accounting system helps you monitor, helps you trace earlier whatever transactions that are not allowed or unauthorized transactions that are being allowed, being done rather by your employees or your officials. First, the BIR, as mentioned earlier by our Commissioner Romeo Lumagis, that we are into our digital transformation program. And the program is actually from 2020 up to 2030. Currently, we have already implemented several projects for purposes of ease of doing business and as part of our digital transformation program. Now, in so far as the accounting system being linked to the BIR, we actually have started with one of the projects which we call the electronic invoicing system and sales reporting. So we have started that already, but you know, it's not that easy to just link because some taxpayer may not actually be will not welcome that idea. In fact, just to share with you, we started already the e-invoicing project way back 2009, but we were not successful in implementing. Why? Because there is a question on the legality. Imagine the computerized accounting of the taxpayer being linked to the tax office system. So there is that question, and that's the reason why the BIR implemented only the e-invoicing this 2022 based on the train law. So we are now backed up with a legal basis. And under that legal basis, particularly Section 237 and 237A of the tax code, it is mandated that we have 3 groups of taxpayers that should be doing e-invoicing and sales reporting with the BIR. Number 1, we have large taxpayers. Second, we have exporters, whether it be of goods or services. And third, those taxpayers engaged in e-commerce. Well, the e-commerce, it's, you know, how they came about now in our industry. And because of that, we need to capture also their sales information, you know, for them to make sure that they pay the correct taxes that may be due if there is any. So we're starting, we're already there. Okay, letter of authority is actually a love letter being sent by the BIR to certain establishments that has been identified to be checked on their compliance with taxation. So the letter of authority is actually granting an instruction or given instruction to certain people on the BIR, our examiners, to check your accounting records. Now, why do we have to check? We just have to make sure that you have complied with tax requirements, rules, and regulations, and as such, you are able to pay the correct amount of tax that may be due on your transactions. Why are you being issued letter of authority, or how do we identify who will be issued a letter of authority or who gets to be audited, in short? Okay. We actually have what we call it, an audit program. Okay? An audit program. And that audit program enumerates the different criteria by which a taxpayer could be a candidate for audit.
So we'd like to hear from you to advise us how to share with our members how to grow the business here, how to pay correct tax here, and how to be peace of mind to continue to invest and continue to invite our friends to invest here. You see, we are very neighboring country, and we are business acting. Business are very, very active business. You know, I remember one time, in a time, I forget what, 1992, 93, Taiwan is the #2 investment, foreign investment after American. And Singapore, Malaysia, are really huge of investment in Philippines here. But most of why foreign chamber been together, because the only way to share our problem, only way to help. Of course, we are developers, good friends. We have many friends here. Many government was working, supporting, especially ATA, especially the chairman. He's been in the government for long, long, long until now, special, is still very active to help us. But this taxation is really give us really. When I say when people talk, sometimes I was invited in Taiwan, Malaysia, and have speech. And people was when talk about Philippines, it's unfair, but their impression is peace and order. Second is corruption. It's hard to do business. No? So, particularly this taxation, that's why we have this forum. And we are very fortunate, you and Commissioner here, to share with you. I can hear Commissioner very sincere to improve, and I'm sure you already improve. But something still in the region or in still have this thing happen. I would like to, on behalf of Foreign Chamber and this organization, I'd like to seek your advice. How to improve, or how to improve of each other, how to communicate for this situation. Thank you.
Hey, thank you very much. And thank you very much for that trust. You know, let me just reiterate. The BIR is an implementing agency. We don't issue the law. So whatever it is that's being passed by our lawmakers, we implement. Now, in the course of implementation, there may be some interpretation that may be different from the perspective of a businessman and that of the Bureau of Internal Revenue. That's one. Second, there is such thing, well, I'm a certified public accountant, so there is such thing in accounting, certain standards that we follow in order to record, okay, expenses of a particular business. But for taxation purposes, there are certain expenses that are not allowed to be deducted because it's provided under the law. It may be a legitimate expense for the business, but for taxation purposes, it's not allowed. Okay, that's one. There are also certain expenses that are allowed both for financial accounting and taxation, but the difference is for financial accounting, you claim 100% of the expense as a deduction. But for purposes of taxation, there is only a limit that would be allowed. Give me an example, representation expense. Normally in financial accounting, if you have the official receipt to support the expense you paid, allowed. That could be deducted 100%, but to determine your net income. But for purposes of taxation, representation is subject to limit. Only 1% of the gross is allowed for purposes of deduction on income tax if you are in sale of service. If you are in the sale of goods, only 0.5% of your gross revenue is allowed as a deduction. So, what is my advice? I know you have your accountants. You have the best accountants and probably the most expensive, okay, the most expensive firms that handles your accounting. But accounting and taxation are two different topics. So whatever it is that they do in accounting, they already knew what are the tax provisions and not merely the standards for accounting purposes. Another, taxation is very, it changes every now and then. Today, this is the provision. A month after, there's already a change because there may be some requirement on clarification of certain provision of the law, or there is a new law that have come out, then we need to have another regulations to implement. So you need to have yourself, your accountants, even your finance group, be always updated with certain provision of the law. Taxing at gross is actually easier for BIR. It will be a much easy way of monitoring because all we have to do is everybody should be in the e-invoicing. So we get to monitor already, we already have the data, we multiply by the rate, and that's it. Easy way of administering taxation. Unfortunately, BIR is an implementing agency. We don't provide the law. We don't pass the law. And the proposal for a gross taxation may actually be easy for administration on the part of the BIR, but we cannot do anything about it, not unless it becomes a law. Now, my suggestion, you have an identity, your group have an identity. Why did you come up with a proposal and have that proposal be sponsored by our lawmakers? So that they may actually look into it and as a sponsor of the law and push that particular proposal. Once it became now our new law on business taxation, I think there's no more problem. BIR would be very much glad to implement, and because of the easier way of doing it. And right now, we're actually doing some preparation, as I've said, with regard to your linkage of your data with the BIR. So there is no problem with us. It just have to be implemented. We just have to get the law and implement the law. So your group will now have the assignment. You have to convene, come up with a proposal, look for a sponsor legislator in Congress and in Senate, explain, of course, whatever that proposal, get their trust, and let them do the rest. BIR will just have to wait for the law.
Once again, thank you so much, Assistant Commissioner Janet Cruz.
I just have a few questions, Secretary, and I would just also like to say that indeed it is very good that you actually came from the Department of Trade and Industry because you understand how it is to have a business in the country, and now, complementing to that, you are actually here to help us even further to make the processing easier and make sure someone is looking after the agencies so that it will be easier for all the business groups here in the Philippines. I would just like to ask, what are the most common complaints that ARTA receives about red tape?
Actually, the failure of an agency to respond immediately to a concern or request. I think that is something that we should be calling the attention of public servants. Not only is it required long ago under the Code of Ethics for public officials and employees that if they receive any letter request, concern, or issue, they have to respond within 15 days from receipt with notice to the one requesting the action to be taken. That period has been shortened from 15 days to just 3 days. If it's a simple request, 7 days if it's a complex request like requiring some discretion on the part of agency to respond, and 20 working days longer if it requires some study. But it is important. That's why even we at ARTA sometimes inadvertently fail to respond, because I've been telling our people, sometimes we are, most of the time we're vulnerable to failure, on our failure to respond to any concern. Sometimes even if we are able to defend our action, or we have a basis for the action, if we fail to even acknowledge any request or letter, then we are already subject, officials and staff, that once they receive any request, letter by way of email, even phone calls, they have to immediately acknowledge. That's a number one complaint that we receive. Number two is delay in responses. Even I shared with you our experience with the BIR. If you request or say an exemption, good Assistant Commissioner was saying earlier about writing the BIR for legal opinion, requesting for exemptions. In the particular case that I shared with you earlier, for 2 or 3 years, the BIR has not acted on the request by a company represented by a top-notch law firm. Imagine a business, a company already being represented in the BIR space. So when the law office approached us, we immediately sent a notice of hearing or notice of meeting within 1 week from the time we received the complaint. Before the scheduled hearing, the day before, the BIR released the certification. Not only in BIR or WAFAC, even in Bureau of Customs. Because they know that under the law, if they fail to process the application within that standard processing time of 3720 that I was sharing with you earlier, the law already considers that a violation. So even if they act on the complaint, but beyond the 3720, public officials are already vulnerable to prosecution for failure to act on the application or request within that standard processing. Now, those are the two, I think, the very common complaints that we receive.
So with all these complaints that you receive, what are the common penalties that possibly an employee could get or the agency could get with not being able to follow the process immediately as mandated under ARTA?
The law itself under Section 21 of Republic Act 11032 is very specific as to the penalties. For failure to act on the application within the standard processing time, or imposing a requirement or fees on top of what is published in the Citizen Charter, for failure to respond within the standard processing time, the erring government official or employee is already subject to a penalty for the first offense of 6 months suspension. For the second offense, it's already dismissal from service, perpetual disqualification, forfeiture of benefits or retirement benefits, fine of 500,000 to 2 million, and imprisonment of 1 to 5 years. And also the law is specific that even if the offense is committed for the first time, but if the offense involves a fixer, the penalty for the second offense is applicable, meaning dismissal, even if it is just a first offense. So that's, the law really highlights the prohibition against dealing with fixers. Because the law assures that if you're aware of your rights under the law, you don't need a fixer to help you. You don't need a padrino or a facilitator, because the law itself provides the mechanism that once you have submitted your application, complete with all the requirements and that fees have been paid, the agency is bound to act on the application within that standard processing time of 3720, or even if it needs an extension, all that he has to do is to inform the applicant of the ground for the extension. Also before, it is very common for government agencies not to respond to any issue or concern. Here, since the law already considers it a violation of the law for failure to respond or to failure to act on the application, either to approve or disapprove, the law says anyone who violates this is already liable for the penalties I mentioned earlier.
So, with regard to ARTA, your mission and your vision says it's all about efficiency. Because we want all the government agencies to actually be efficient. But you are the ones helping out the business sector or the public so that they can work efficiently enough and effective enough. But what are some of ARTA's most successful initiatives, and what do you think are still the biggest challenges that ARTA as a whole is facing, considering also when we talk about efficiency, other agencies could possibly just say, because not everyone is digitized. Of course, there is delay. But what can you add into this?
Common problem is with the local government unit in you're getting of business permit licenses, especially that in January, you'll be renewing your business permit. Before, you're subjected to several requirements. Before, you have to go to the LGU to renew your business permit, all in line. before you can be subject to all kinds of harassment, like the computation is left solely to the discretion of the LGU. Now, there is this requirement of LGU to publish in their Citizens Charter the fees that they have to pay. So, in order to address this issue, one that we really focus on is the implementation of the requirement which the law itself provides, in which all local government units are required to set up and operationalize an electronic business one-stop shop. I've shared with you the slide earlier that those LGUs that have complied with this requirement, meaning that the filing of your application are being done online, including the processing, the payment of fees, and the printing of fees can be done online. Those LGUs that have set up and operationalized an electronic business one-stop shop resulted in the substantial increase in the number of registration and revenue collection. This shows that this is really an evidence that to fight red tape and corruption, you have to streamline and digitalize processes. And one effective program of streamlining and digitalization is that electronic business one-stop shop. That's one example. During the pandemic, we are all victims and we all appreciate the need for having a stronger internet connection. So the first thing that we did during the pandemic was to release a joint memorandum circle among all concerned agencies like the DILG, the DICT, National Telecommunications Commission, Department of Public Works and Highways, where we streamlined the requirements for the permitting process for the setting up of those telecommunications and tower companies, where we were able to substantially reduce the number of requirements, the fees, and the processing time, which by 1 year implementation alone resulted in the substantial increase in the number of permits issued by more than 26,000. Now with the issuance by the President of Executive Order 32, which extended the validity of GMC, we anticipate that the figures will even improve. Now also I shared the IBRIS and the Artemis. These are streamlining and digitalizing efforts using the digital platform that will enable the public to have access to the system. So in a way, we will be promoting transparency. That's very important, critical in the fight against red tape, because all agencies are required to upload the regulations they implement in that system. They are also required to upload in the anti-red tape electronic management system the Citizens Charter that they implement. So when this becomes operationalized within starting this year up to next year, you don't need anymore to go to the agency's office to look at their updated Citizens Charter. All you need is to have access to the digital platform, and you will have full information on the regulations and the Citizens Charter that are being implemented by any concerned government.
So at this point, how or what else do you think, how can ARTA and other government agencies, maybe even us, including our associations, what can we do to work together to further reduce red tape and improve the business climate in the Philippines?
First, we're fast-tracking the training of government agencies in terms of that regulatory impact assessment. We're holding regular consultation meetings. We're also entering into agreements with the chambers of commerce. Like recently, we signed a memorandum of understanding with the Malaysian Chamber of Commerce, recently with the Norwegian Chamber of Commerce, and soon will be with the German Chamber of Commerce, and all the rest. We encourage the signing of this agreement so that you can be our partners, our champions, where we will capacitate you to accept complaints, concerns, represent your members, and elevate those concerns by your members to us so that your members will no longer have that hesitation of coming out in the open. Instead, your association, your Chamber of Commerce will represent you, and ARTA will be working faster. The roadmap of 2028 is a roadmap. Of course, our dream is to fast-track its implementation. But at least we're guided by that roadmap to assure everyone that before that year ends, we shall have already achieved that embedded stage of regulatory management system. But we're not going to wait for 2028. We act with urgency, and we act and we can only do this fast if we have the support and collaboration from people like business leaders.
Thank you very much, Secretary Perez. It's good to know that we have an agency that we can actually contact if in case we cannot find any immediate solution from any Philippine government agency. So as mentioned earlier by Secretary Perez, you can contact 12782 or 8888 if in case you have any complaints. Thank you very much. This is the Secretary of the Anti-Red Tape Authority, Secretary Perez. Thank you very much.
At the Dusit Tani, Manila, Philippines. Signed, Edward Lee, Chairman of FCCI, Frankie Yam, President of TCCI-PH, and Andrew Ko, President of SPA.
Okay, so moving on. Good afternoon, DTG Santos. It's good to know that actually PESA is a one-stop shop and a non-stop shop. I'm sure that is what everyone wants to hear because you've mentioned also that you were the first fully automated and electronic provider of for the different businesses to really show that there is ease of doing business when you are under PESA. And it's also good to know, as you have mentioned, there is no red tape at PESA, but only red carpet. I'm sure everyone will be happy to know that because they will be able to do their processes when they are under PESA. Congratulations. Firstly, you mentioned earlier that under PESA, there are several sectors that are eligible to do the business under there. And this includes manufacturing, processing, IT, even science and technology. So once they have established that they belong to this industry, what process should they do so that they can actually qualify and register under PESA so their business could have the benefits of PESA?
To respond to your question, so our basis of approval of projects that are applying for registration with PESA, the project or the activity has to qualify with the listed activities under the Strategic Investment Priority Plan. Once these are qualified, the manner of submission of application to PESA is online as well. It is submitted through the PESA ears. It's available in the PESA website. And then all applications, upon receipt of the application with complete requirements, we guarantee approval by the PESA board within 20 days. Because all applications for registration, be it a new registration, expansion projects, or new projects, it is to be approved by the PESA board of directors, which happen to hold meetings twice a month. So we are confident that the 20 days rule applies, and so far we have not received any complaint related to that process.
Earlier, also part of your presentation is that you showed that the government in itself actually stopped having eco zones, but there is something that you call private eco zones these are the ones that private companies, or what you also refer to as new frontier in ecozone development. So how can any of our businesses here, as of course you all know that we have businessmen from Taiwan, Singapore, Malaysia who are present here and would also want to be under PESA because you do have a lot of incentives available to them. So if there are no more new constructions of public ecozones, but there is what you call private ecozones, how can they partake of this?
Actually, as shown on my presentations, out of the 422 ecozones managed by PESA, only 4 out of 422 are public ecozones. These public ecozones are located in Cavite, Rosario, in Cebu, Mactan Economic Zone, in Baguio City, and the latest is the Pampanga Economic Zones. There are only 4 economic zones, so the rest, 418 of which are all private economic zones. What do you mean by private? Private, these are developed, operated, and maintained by the private sector. This private developer also apply to PESA as an ecozone developer operator and equally enjoy incentives. But if you are a foreigner, you will have to partner with a Filipino
Yes, to
entity
develop.
to develop the ecozones. But once the ecozone is approved by PESA and eventually issued a proclamation by the Office of the President, then all locator companies can now locate in that approved private ecozones. So meaning both the ecozone developer and the locator enterprises will enjoy separate incentives.
Yeah, so we have 422 ecozones, but we are still open to have more, considering how big the Philippines, especially also that the geographical setting of the Philippines. So we're very much open to that. So if it's a foreign investor, they have to partner with a Filipino company, or if it's fully Filipino, then they can just process to make their development a PESA economic private zone.
Yes, because developing economic zone entail ownership of land.
Yes.
So that's why they have to partner. But if they don't want to partner with the Filipino entity, they can just end up leasing the property. Now in the Philippines, you can lease land up to 75 years.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so that's a very long time to grow your business and have the have your investment under PESA and have the incentives benefit that you get from being a PESA accredited ecozone. Also, earlier you mentioned that, of course, we are very competitive with other countries when it comes to economic zones. But you also mentioned that the top one having a good feedback is actually Japan. Singapore, Taiwan is actually there. But how can we encourage more that we have business owners here, investors here from those countries to actually come here to the Philippines? Maybe they can share with them. How will you encourage them more to please have their businesses here and make sure that they are under the PESA?
We're so lucky that no less than our President, Ferdinand Marcos, is actively on investment promotion bids. But this is followed through by PESA. In fact, PESA team for this year alone have been to Taiwan several times. Only a week ago, our Director General was there, and he is very much excited to report that in that trip, we again received pledges of about 26 billion pesos for Taiwanese investors. And our office, Ate Makapagal, is also always busy these days, receiving delegations, mostly from Taiwanese, Chinese, and the Euro chambers. We're not complaining, but we're happy that it seems like we're back in the radar.
Well, that's good to know. And lastly, ma'am, I would like to ask, because some of them might be already under PESA, if in case violated something, what could be some of the penalties for violating the rules and regulations under PESA?
Well, that's something that I am very proud of. We are not just meeting penalties left and right. Everything has to go through the process. If allocator enterprise violate PESA rules, you will be issued a show cause order. We will be giving you ample time to respond and conduct evaluation before we can even issue a resolution providing for the penalty. And even if there's a resolution already meted out by the respective zone managers, that is not final. You can always appeal, and the appeal will be sent to the PESA head office.
There you have it, the Deputy Director General of the Philippine Economic Zone Authority, DDG, for Operations, Honorable Vivian Santos. Thank you so much for being part of this Ease of Doing Business event.
Our pleasure.
CCI-PH, and Mr. Andrew Ko, President of SPA.
Face the nation.